All right. G'day, good morning, good evening, good day to all the listeners and viewers. I'd like to introduce our latest and greatest guest, Alex Reid from Boodjera Construct, a great friend of mine, colleague, and a client of the firm. And Alex is in a business, I guess, or industry that's quite challenging at the moment, the building and construction industry. And is a fast-growing builder in WA, from regional WA, in fact, and he's now starting to make a name for himself here in the fancy Perth or northern suburbs of Perth. So, g'day, Alex.
Thanks, Faz.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, Alex, it's obviously a tough game at the moment, depending upon which side, I guess, of the building construction ledger that you sit. But I guess, do you want to give us a quick introduction of yourself, who the business is, and then we can maybe start to have a chat about how the business came to be?
Yeah, so I'm Alex Reid, 32 years of age, grew up in Scarborough, went to school at Newman College, and I left there when I was about 15. And started working at UWA as a apprentice carpenter. And I actually after I finished the apprenticeship, got given the opportunity to stay on as a carpenter. So I got to work on all their assets and, basically all their nice heritage buildings and everything. So I learnt the original carpentry skills, I guess. And then from there, they were doing some payouts. They were making sort of people redundant. They wanted to outsource a lot of that work, which enabled me to get my builder's ticket and start my first business, which started off as a residential builder. And then from there, it sort of grew and got sick of mum and dad and moved into the commercial space. So, and then the new company at the moment is Boodjera Group. We've had a rebrand. It was Boodjera Construct, and that's basically doing a lot of commercial work for government, so Department of Finance and Department of Communities.
Great. So, Alex, is the business still predominantly based here in Perth, or am I correct in understanding you've got a couple of locations?
So that originally started in the Midwest, so Geraldton. We were doing a lot of work there on all the schools, police stations, hospitals, all the government sort of assets, and a lot for Department of Communities. So that was also working in a lot of the remote Indigenous communities throughout the Midwest. And we now have an office in Perth. We've moved back to Perth, doing the same thing for Department of Finance, working on all their schools, and also have a Bunbury office as well.
Great.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. And I guess the burning question is, how have you found the last 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years. Well, with COVID, that was interesting. That was pretty much bang on when we kicked off Boodjera Construct, and it was challenging. The first year was hard, but we got through it. And then sort of the last 2 years, we've managed to, I guess, give our clients confidence in that we'll produce a really good product and be able to finish it on time. So things have sort of exploded a bit, and we've been extremely busy.
Great. And I think there's obviously a fair few steps to get, I guess, to tendering and providing scope of works to the Department of Communities. So for the young up-and-coming carpenter that may or may not be a prospective builder out there, how did you go through that period or that transition, I guess?
It's hard because when you get those tender documents, they can be 300-400 pages of stuff that I guess isn't really to do with the build itself, so it can scare a lot of people. It took me a few times of reading through them and working out that it's just T's and C's and what happens if this and everything. So once you get past that part, it becomes a lot easier, the tenders, because then you know which part to skip to. There's a few main points, I guess. Timeframes are big. And if you don't follow those timeframes, you get charged liquidated damages, and you really want to avoid that. And a lot being schools, normally they have to be done during school holidays, so you have to make sure that your team is available, because if they're not, you're not going to get the project done. So once you get past that part, it's pretty easy, but it can scare most people, I think.
Yeah, okay. So it's because I've never personally submitted a tender document. I think the firm has, but I personally wasn't necessarily involved in that. And I was quite overwhelmed too, to be honest. When I reviewed the document, I went, wow, like this is intense. And I guess there's tender writers and people that you can involve. Is that true? Is that
there are tender writers, but with the projects that we do, I guess we do it in-house. We have a couple of guys now that have done quite a few of them, so they understand what needs to go into the tender. But because the projects that we're doing at the moment are sort of valued up to, we're pre-qualified to be able to do projects up to 3 mil. So there's a lot of smaller value projects. I guess our main sort of area is up to $1 million, $1.5 million. So it's not really worth going to a tender writer as such. And because the projects are they all vary. There's a lot to them. Not every tender is the exact same. So I think going to a tender writer probably isn't for us yet. But yeah, we do it all in-house, and the guys are pretty good at what they do now.
Yeah, great. Good. So, Alex, it's probably safe to say you're on track to now building a successful and sustainable business. You started the business at 25 years of age, if I'm not mistaken. So, as I typically touch on in the pod, that you come across the 5-year hump of survival, I guess is probably the right word. Over this period of time, I've got a little bit of insight into your business. Yeah. It's safe to say that you've experienced some challenges, as every business does. Given the benefit of hindsight, what is some tips or advice that you've faced in building and construction? Probably first and foremost, and I'm going to touch on COVID because I believe that a lot of businesses, again, have come over this hump, and a lot of lessons were learnt from COVID. Building and construction was one of those businesses that just went, bang! It just flew. So let's touch on that one first, because I think that is quite topical, and it'd be important that the listeners understand. So, how did you overcome this COVID burst of building and construction? Well, what is it that you did in your business?
I think for me, that's when I went from residential to commercial. So with the residential, they were obviously doing the homeowner grants and stuff like that, and builders were taking on work that they, in my eyes, they just couldn't complete. They should never have taken on all the projects, and that hurt a lot of people. Plus, the price of materials were going up. Some things were doubling almost overnight. And we were quite lucky. We decided to stop in the residential space, so that didn't really affect us too much. Did for a couple of projects that we had, but that's when we moved into the commercial space. Not that it was, I guess, safer, but I think the margins were better, so we managed to get out of it without too much damage. Whereas I know a lot of residential builders that priced, say 100 builds, something like that, whereas normally they'd only do 10 builds, and the price increases across 100 builds. That's a lot of coin. So they suffered quite a lot, whereas we didn't.
And the fixed price contracts, so maybe let's touch on that a bit.
That's the thing, yeah, the fixed price contracts, especially for a residential build when they're across, I think originally it was 12 months, and then because they ended up with, double the amount of work they normally have, it started blowing out to 18 months, and some, I believe, are still sitting there uncompleted after 3 or 4 years. And again, we do have fixed price. Everything's fixed price commercial, but the turnaround times for those are 12 weeks. So it's not like a normal residential build that's 12 months. So the timeframes are a lot quicker. The builds are faster. So the price increases. Normally, we've finished a job before the price increase comes.
Got it. So as a business, I guess how you navigated that challenge was you identified from a business standpoint where you could continue to operate that made money. You pivoted the business as it probably had the capability to do so, because the skill sets the same, or they're a little bit different?
They're a bit different.
Okay.
I think especially with government, relationships are very important, and there's not as much of an emotional attachment to the project. It's more, we need it done. We need it done now. Need to try and stick to budget, but they always have a bit of a backup budget, a contingency to play with, which is good, whereas a mum and dad normally don't. They've taken out the loan. There is no room that if you find something that is a variation, it's normally very hard to get it out of a client, out of a mum and dad anyway. Whereas commercially, as long as you can prove that it wasn't part of the tender, it was messed by all the consultants, you can normally claim that variation. So
different caliber of client, I guess.
It is, yeah, definitely. Yeah. One's very, very personal, and the other is more, we've got a job to do, let's get it done.
Yeah, get it done. Very outcome driven.
Yes, outcome driven, definitely.
Good. So I guess then you've obviously transitioned from resi to commercial. You've now maintained a presence in, I guess, fulfilling government contracts. Is there any greys to managing the government contracts? And I know it's a loaded question, and I know I've got to be careful, and you've got to be careful too with the greys, because there's a lot of confidentiality issues that may arise. But without giving us too much, Alex, I guess give us some insight into how it works, because there's different tiers in different departments that can do different things, without saying too much.
There is. So there's different tiers. So you start off at level 1. So that's projects valued up to 500,000.
Okay.
And then that's with no prequels, you can do up to 500,000.
Right.
Then level 1, you can do 500,000 to 1.5 mil. Then level 2 is 1.5 to 3 mil, and it goes up from there. And basically, to get the prequal, you have to prove a few different things, that you've done a project off that value, it's been completed on time and on budget, and then also they have a few other things as well, like it's a performance review. So normally the representative from Department of Finance will do a review of the project, will liaise with the client, so say the school, the principal, and the architect, and they'll go through and give you a mark against that project. So timeframes, how the supervisor for that project, how he performed, budgets, whether there were any major cost differences that you've gone for a variation, and once you get that mark, there's a few different ways they mark it. So you're either poor, performance is poor, good, and very good. And you normally want to sit within that good and very good, because it's marked. So then that goes on your record, and every time a project comes up, they'll check that. And that gives you, I guess, extra points when you go for another tender. If you've got 10 or 20 projects that are performing really well, they're more likely to give you the project, even if you're not, say, the cheapest quote, but you're reliable. They know you're going to get the project finished.
Right. Very insightful. I definitely wasn't aware that was the system. And I could just imagine if the residential builders were...
Well, that's it. And another thing that they do as well, for any tender that's over, or say prequal level 1, they will do a full review of your financials. Right. So you'll have to go to your accountant, they pull off everything, you sign it, send it back to them, and they go through it with a fine-tooth comb. That's for every project.
Which is very important. Right? Very
important, yeah. It's just making sure that you can get the job done, and it's protecting your subcontractors as well, knowing that you're going to pay your subcontractors. Yeah. So that's one thing that they've always got. They've been burnt by a couple of builders that have basically run off with the government's money and haven't paid subcontractors.
Which is a big issue, and it's an issue
Big
we
issue.
saw. Definitely seeing more frequently these days, but we saw it probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. Then there's shonky builders and things like that, cowboys.
Yes.
So it's safe to say that the government obviously spend additional resources in going through this qualification process, and it's a qualification process on a per build basis, and that probably allows both the government as the end client and the builder to have an equal level of accountability and responsibility.
Correct.
Right. Interesting. So for anyone out there that is looking to explore getting into government contracts, I guess Alex has been kind enough to give us an insight. But Alex, obviously, you've transitioned from carpenter to builder, and that in itself was a challenge. So do you want to, again, give us some insight into any young, up-and-coming entrepreneur that is currently undertaking a trade, notwithstanding there's a trade crisis here in WA, but how did you manage that process, mate?
I think it was hard. It was hard, especially going from a carpenter with a team of guys that I was working with every single day to becoming the builder that had to be off the tools, in the office, doing the paperwork, doing the quotes. That was very hard. And it's only sort of been maybe the last 2 years where I've been completely off the tools and just in the office. And I wish I did it years ago. Because basically you can't grow the business while you're on the tools. You've got to step back and let the guys do the work basically, and then grow the team around you. It was definitely challenging. And I guess as well, there was a bit of they're not going to do it the way I want it to be done, and that was the hardest thing for me to step away off the tools.
Yes. So you probably started to define your management style and your leadership style through that process.
Yeah.
And that's probably evolved over time, as you've said.
Definitely.
You wish you had done it earlier.
Yeah.
So managing, again, I feel building and construction is a tough industry because, I guess in many industries there probably is, but there's a personality that you're managing too. So it's not just, oh yeah, no worries, mate, fix it up. It's like the bloke's probably going to, if he's a chippy or a carpenter, mate, he's probably got a piece of wood he can smack over your head if he doesn't quite exactly agree with what you're saying. So how do you manage that, mate? How do you manage, I guess, the personality piece?
It is hard. I like to think sometimes we're almost like school teachers because we're just managing a bunch of kids sometimes. I don't know if that's right to say, but they are. Some of the tradies are. Look, I think because I was on the tools and the carpenters that have been around, say, a lot older than myself that are on the team, because I've been there and done it, now when I say to the guys, I need you to go and do this and it's going to take 2 days, and if one of the younger guys sort of goes, oh, what would he know? He sits behind a computer all day. It's normally the older guys that pull him up and go, no, Alex has actually been there and done it. So I guess, a lot of guys sort of say I'm one of the old school builders that has been there and actually physically built stuff with my own hands, I guess. So they tend to listen to me a lot more than, say, someone else, say a supervisor that we may have that has no hands-on experience as that carpenter. They tend to maybe not listen to them as much. I think that fills the guys with confidence that if I tell them, hey, this is how it needs to be done, they normally do it.
So there's obviously, I guess, street cred or credibility.
Yeah, credibility. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, which is important, particularly as you've rightly put out. A lot of builders see, yourself, you've got your boots on today.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you
without them.
Without them on, to be honest. But there is an importance of probably going through either one trade or multiple trades to get to a point that you can probably go, yes, I can be a builder and I can probably tell you guys what to do because I've got insight, or I can be a builder and have the right people around me that have the credibility to manage the boys. Is that
correct?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably important in any business, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you need those team members around you that you can trust, and they're good at what they do. I guess send them out to manage the team.
Talking about team members, I've met some of the boys.
Yes,
They're all very good boys. Yeah. How important is it to have the right team, particularly on strict deadlines? And you talk about trust. Let's talk about that a bit more. So how do you, I guess, impart that trust, or I guess lean on the boys for the trust in this process? Because there's a lot of trust when you're building something.
There is a lot of trust, definitely. Look, most of the guys and girls that work for us, I guess when we go to hire them, a lot of people that we've hired, say of Seek or, other forms of advertising, normally they don't last. The guys that have lasted in our business, it's normally from word of mouth. You might go, hey, Alex, I know Johnny over here, he does a good job. I think he'll work well in your business. Those guys seem to last. And the culture that we've got as well, I guess it's very strong, as in it almost feels like a big family. So everyone helps each other out, and if someone's having a down day, someone will come and, everyone sees it, and someone will come and pick up the slack. So I think having that there is good for the business. And then the trust, everyone feels like a big family. So you'll trust each other. You'll go a bit further, do a little bit extra. Whereas a lot of people that we do get off just advertising, they just don't seem to last.
Well, they're just not the right fit.
They're not the right fit.
Yeah,
no.
and I think you're right. Once you've built a resilient culture is probably another way to put it, where you've got everyone looking out for each other, and even if something goes wrong, we can jump in.
Yeah.
For a newcomer actually to get embedded into that, it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
It's really tough. And it's almost to the point that when you build it too big and too strong, it's very tough to bring people on.
Yeah, it is. It is tough to bring people on. I guess they feel like they're not a part of the family almost.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to build it, but at the same time, you have to also create a culture that enables new people to join the crew and to come on board. And I think in your game it is evolving so rapidly, and I'm going to bring something up that we discussed earlier, but it's not just about people in your business at the moment. There is, I guess, particularly internationally speaking, there's a lot of machinery that's now being developed, which some of us may or may not be privy to, about auto bricklayers and I guess auto carpenters, which is something you've looked at. Yes. So do you want to maybe share some insight into that, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. So it's becoming harder and harder to get skilled tradesmen. So we've been looking a lot at different technologies to help, I guess, speed up the building process. So there's a few different robots that we're looking at bringing in. They can basically take a lot of the manual side of construction, especially constructing a house, taking that manual side away. So there's a lot of lifting and cutting all done by robots, and the speed that these machines can do it at, and the accuracy as well is amazing, because, you'll get a chippy that, say a screw's meant to be put in every 300 mil, he'll get a bit sloppy and maybe do every 400, whereas the robot can't cheat or lie or get lazy. It will put it into the spec. So the robots will definitely speed things up and help, and I think that's where everything needs to start shifting to. Maybe not full-on robots fully taking everyone's jobs, because that's not possible, not in construction, not yet anyway. But I think things need to shift, especially with the labour shortage. Correct.
And then it's probably back to your point about finding the right people. It's not just people that fit culturally, but people that have actually upskilled to operate such machinery, right? Because that in itself, you're going to have to either probably go potentially back to uni or back to TAFE to upskill. True?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right. So it's fascinating though, right? You probably wouldn't have sat here 10 years ago going, oh, well, maybe there's a robot chippy out there that may replace my job, but it's now real.
It is real. Yeah, it is definitely real.
Yeah, wow. So as a business then, you're probably, particularly with the government style of work that you're, I guess, providing for, is there a requirement that they assess you against, or are they embraces and they're going, yeah, Alex, let's go? Like, what's the insight there?
They're excited about it because obviously there's, I can't remember the exact stats, but we're meant to build something like 1.5 million homes over the next 5 years across Australia. And I know that we're way behind in building those. So they are going, sounds good, but because it's totally new to Australia, you've got to convince a lot of people that, hey, this is doable. And it's being done over in Europe. It's, they've been doing it for the last 20 years. So it's not new technology. I guess the technology is growing and changing probably every 6 months. Things are moving pretty fast now, but it's not new. So hopefully once I sit down and show what the machines can do, hopefully we'll get the green tick to get into it.
Yeah, and I think you've rightly pointed out, it's not about making people redundant. It's actually about providing a solution on time, on budget, which is what they're looking for, right?
It definitely is. And look, if anything, the machines are going to we're going to be employing a lot more staff than what we are now to install it. You still need someone to install it on site. The robot just speeds things up and builds basic modules. So you're definitely not making anyone redundant. So,
it's fascinating, and it's good to hear. It's good to hear that you're evolving, and the business is evolving and the industry is evolving. So, again, the importance of brand and evolution. You recently undertook a rebrand, which we briefly touched on earlier. So, do you want to maybe shed some light on that and the importance of having a brand that reflects the business?
Yeah. So we were originally Boodjera Construct, and as we've sort of grown with all these different areas, so we've got our own carpenters, plumbers, painters, we were just looking to bring it all under the one banner rather than having it all, Boodjera painting and Boodjera this, Boodjera that. We thought if it's all under one big group, again, it brings us all together, a big family. I know I keep bringing it up, but you're basically one team then, rather than all being completely separated. And the logos come from an artwork that a Aboriginal lady did and she's based from the Midwest as well. So we took a photo of her artwork, put that all together, pulled parts out to create different elements, and each colour will then, our plan is to use that as a drop down for each of the different departments within Boodjera. So it'll be exciting once that's finished.
Which is good. And again, you need a brand that represents your business.
Definitely.
And represents the people behind the business. I guess now that you've started to evolve as a business, you've probably started to realise the importance of that. And people are like loud and proud, I work for Boodjera Group, and Alex is the boss, or I work with Alex, or whatever it is. It's really something that at the pub you talk about, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've definitely heard it many times at the pub. People are really loud and proud about who they are and what they do and who they work for, right?
They are.
Yeah. So as a growing business, you need to have a brand that reflects that, and that brand needs to evolve.
Definitely.
Yeah. Good. Great. So Alex, again, you're still very, very young, and there's a lot of teachings that you've probably got to share for us. So, and I'm going to touch on this because I think this is really relevant for the young and up-and-coming tradesman that is looking to get out and start a business. I guess give us some insight or some tips on what they should be looking for. Is it the mum and dad, or is it you maybe start at mum and dad, then you get into commercial, or you can go straight to the top? What's the process?
I think you've got to start somewhere. So you probably definitely start off just working with mum and dad, doing extensions, patios, decks, stuff like that. Bathroom extensions with a bedroom, that sort of thing. That's a good way to start because the value's not extremely high. So there's not a huge amount of financial risk, but it gives you those sort of skills that, and I've learned a lot from making a lot of mistakes, and I think you have to, because then you can see them coming next time as well. So you've got to make a few mistakes, make a few stuff ups, learn from them, especially learn from them while that you're dealing with low value, contracts, because you don't want to be doing it later on when you've got a couple of $1 million contract and you've made a mistake that you could have learnt 2 years ago doing a $100,000 mistake. So I would definitely start there, and I wouldn't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, because that's probably why I'm here now. Is in woodworking class, I was there, and the woodworking teacher wouldn't let me do something because he thought my skills weren't there. I'd love to go back and say, hey, mate, look where I am now. So I don't think, definitely don't let someone tell you that you can't do it or you just won't make it, because I think if you put your head down and just keep going, you're going to fall over plenty of times, but you just got to get up and keep going.
Yeah, I love it. And it's something that we consistently talk on the pod, to be honest, about striving forward, fail fast, I think Aaron said in one of the last episodes, and now you've rightly put it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it, because everything's possible.
Yeah.
And it's that mindset that as a leader, almost the people want you to have. Your people that are behind you, they're going, we want someone that wants to challenge it. We want someone that, at 32 has done a series of government contracts, and that's the resume, and that's who they are, and that's the business that we represent. It's critical. And for the young and up and coming, it's not easy, because a lot of people do tell you that you can't do it.
They do.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. Amazing, mate. Amazing. So I guess, Alex, now looking forward into the foreseeable future, obviously there's a housing crisis that you're not necessarily directly involved in, but somewhat. Is there a way out, or is it just something that we are just going to have to go through the motions?
It's hard, because I know the government, they try to bring in 10,000 skilled tradies, I think, into Australia to try and get rid of the labour shortage to speed up building houses. And I'm not quite sure. I have a feeling the numbers were something like there's only 1,000 of them still actually employed.
Wow.
As a tradie where they originally came over. So, you've got 9,000 people that really have come over and they're just on a holiday at the moment. So that didn't really work. I don't know. It's a hard one. I think bringing the robotics into it will speed things up, but I just think the amount of houses that they want to build, it's just impossible.
It's impossible.
Especially with the builders that, you see it almost weekly. Another builder's gone broke and shutting up shop. So it's not good.
Yeah, I think back to your point earlier about people doing due diligence and financial due diligence. A lot of these builders have probably taken on more than they could, and unfortunately for them, a lot of things out of their control haven't gone their way. Like you said, fixed price contracts, price increases, etc. And it's a real thing. Oh, yeah, it's a real thing when you were originally building 10 homes and now you've tendered and picked up 100.
Yeah.
Your multiple's 10 times.
Definitely.
So anything that before was just a small issue is now 10 times the issue.
Yeah, exactly right. Especially if you're doing something, let's say you're doing a 100,000, or 1,000 square metre roof, let's say, and that price is now doubled. That's a lot of coin. Especially when you're buying it. I think originally we were buying roof sheeting for like $12 a square metre, and I think at the moment it's about $17 a square metre. So there's a big jump.
Wow. Wow. So as a prospective homeowner, is it buy or is it build?
I would buy.
Buy.
Yeah, I don't think I would build at the moment, unless it was a small builder that has just done his 30 houses a year and he just ticks over. He's potentially a builder that it's a generation builder, I guess. So,
right.
It started off with granddad, dad's had it, now the son's got it. I think that's who you'd want to build with.
Boutique.
But yeah, boutique builder, definitely. Yep. I don't think you'd go to one of the big guys because I don't think they're going to look after you.
Yeah.
That's my view.
Yep. That's fair enough.
It's probably the trades as well, because no one can get anything built. They're trying to get just anyone. They're pretty much getting anyone in to build your house. So the quality's just not there.
Well, there you have it. Until the foreseeable, I guess, until we get out of this crisis, we're just going to have to slug it out. And it's tough for anyone that's trying to get into the market because house prices are just booming.
They are,
and the government projects are arguably booming too, because with all these people that I guess are coming to the state, the government needs to have projects readily available, or schools or infrastructure that, things need to be done, right?
Well, definitely. As the population grows, they've got to start spending more money on the infrastructure. So, especially with WA, how it's just stretched so long, they need schools and hospitals probably more than, let's say, when I was over in Europe. Everything's so dense and, they've got a hospital, but that hospital can service that whole area because it's, saying that circumference. Whereas over here, you're only talking, I don't know how many Ks exactly wide, but we're very long.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's definitely stretching the resources that they have. They have to build more and more hospitals, more schools, more police stations, because we're just stretching so long.
Yeah.
We're going all the way up to Yanship now, and there's just houses. You're not going past any bush now when you go along Marmion up there. It's, I've come back and noticed that, wow, look at this. They're already building houses on there, and I've only been gone 5 weeks.
Yeah,
wow. There was still bush there.
Yeah, I think you've rightly pointed out the metropolitan area is growing at a rapid rate.
Yes.
And people like yourself are who the state's turning to continue building this infrastructure. And, with all the challenges you've got, it's going to be a challenge to deliver on time. But as always, the pressure's on, and we're going to have to come up with solutions.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why we're doing a lot of things in-house as well. So we're able to control how fast the project is getting completed, because it's all our in-house trades that are completing the project. And that's why we've sort of grown the business to, every time someone lets us down, I sort of go, well, so we can, look after our client, let's bring that in-house, let's get our own carpenters, let's get our own painters, our own plumbers. So that's how I think we can control the projects, especially for the government. Like you said, it's a very quick turnaround. You get awarded the project, they want you to start in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well.
So it's a tough ask, but it's our space, I guess.
Great. Well, look, you've done an exceptional job, Alex, and you should be commended. You're still very young, 32 years of age, and here you are winning and delivering on time and on budget government contracts, which aren't small. No. And you have to go through a fair bit of due diligence. So hats off to you. I think you've provided some fantastic insight for the listeners today. I guess if the listeners want to know more about you or get in touch with you, Alex, how do they do that?
Even if they Google Boodjera Group, it will come up, and our email's there, so they can send it straight to us.
Fantastic. Great. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. You've definitely shared some insight to me that I wasn't privy to, and hopefully some words of support to the young and up-and-coming tradie, that you just have to go for it. Don't let people tell you can't do it. And most importantly, be ready for the evolution of the building industry, because, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Lovely.
Thanks so much, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
And if, as I said, if you've got any questions, just feel free to reach out to Alex, Boodjera Group on Google, and I'm sure they'll get to your query.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks, Vaz.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for coming on. And until next time, guys, look forward to the next episode. There's a new one coming out soon, so hopefully you've clicked subscribe and you're well and truly onto it by now. We're getting into the nitty gritty of It's All About the Grey. It's growing. There's some fantastic people coming on, and people like Alex that have shared some great insight. If there's anything that we aren't doing or you want to listen to more, feel free to reach out. Thank you.